there's definitely still a lot out there that hear AI immediately or they hear a robot or something like that and they're put off by it or they hang up or whatever else. And we're kind of putting the pillars in place to help with that. But with the new releases in technology, I think we're really, really close to it being indistinguishable from a person answering the phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kuehlhorn Radio, the broadcast that hosts conversations that can help you craft your life. Each week, we bring on guests who are influencers, coaches, mentors, leaders, and our conversations explore the art of intentional living and crafting life to your dreams. Drop in with us now and get ready to craft your life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Craft Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm sitting down with Nathan Keller. I've been working with Nathan for a little bit. He is a founder of Free to Grow, and he's helping home service owner-operators increase their revenue through 100% lead capture, call booking, utilizing an AI voice platform. This is the real version of Nathan, not his AI version. So I appreciate you being here, man.
Oh, Matt, it's funny you say that. We got a test line on our website, and this guy called in last night, and I called him back, and he goes, "This is a real person, not AI." And he was joking around. I was like, "Yep, you got the real person." So
yeah. We're gonna go off the side real quick, but have you seen or talked to like Joe Polish's AI?
I've not yet. No.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not the only one, but it's real, man. This is a big wave. I'm excited to get into some of the details with this. For the listeners, where are you beaming in from? Where are you located?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, middle of the country.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the middle of the country. Right on. And did you grow up around there?
I did. Born and raised, went to school outside of St. Louis, but came back and, started working here, and then of course started a business here. My wife is from the middle of Missouri, so we weren't about to, head to a small town. So it just kind of works out. And then of course, once you have kids and they're integrated into schools and everything, you can't really uproot too easily.
Right. Yeah, you get the roots. You get the roots pretty deep there. Yep. Yeah, I dig it, man. Well, I'm curious, we're talking about AI. You guys obviously have really gone deep on investing in AI voice. And I saw it months ago, and I was telling folks that I'm going to have an AI start answering our phone calls, like 6 months. And this was the end of 2025, 2023.
Yeah.
And so now that's come to fruition, and I'm really excited to see where this all goes. But I'm curious, like, how did this develop for you? Because you guys weren't all in on AI.
No.
At one point.
No, we weren't. So, we started the business 5 years ago. And this was kind of born from my partner and I. My partner's here in St. Louis too. We've known each other since high school. Actually played high school football together. We've been very, very tight. And he had a couple home service businesses. I was working in the tech world on the sales side. I worked for a couple of really big companies, and then found my way to smaller businesses, which I enjoyed a lot more, and saw a couple successful exits with those. And then I had the itch to go do something on my own. Charlie and I kind of reconnected, and he talked about a pain point that he had with his small contracting businesses with CSRs and office managers, and just saying, you know what, you have maybe 40 hours of work a week for them to do, but they still have to be there to answer the phones, and you still have people that don't show up and all this other stuff. Right. And, so that's where the idea was really spawned from. Right. And, essentially our idea was, hey, can we build kind of like a call center on steroids, right? Call centers typically take calls, take a message, pass it on to whoever might, be receiving that call. And, can we utilize technology and skill sets with people to, essentially be the extension of the company where they're booking estimates and filling that customer service role. So we started that in St. Louis with a couple employees and some homes that we were, servicing anybody and everybody we could at the time, right? It was kind of a little pre-COVID when we started. And then And then COVID hit, and all these home service businesses, because people were at home, were starting to boom because they had, they're at home, they want to fix things, they want to do this, that, and otherwise. And so we got really busy really quick. We got up to about 6 to 8 employees in St. Louis. And then we were looking at bigger office space. Our employees actually came to us and said, we'd like the opportunity to work remote. It was an interesting conversation because we kind of had like a town hall type deal where I just said, you know what, guys, I'm willing to do this, but you have to understand, as soon as this happens, not to be cold about it, but you guys now are turning yourselves into a bit, obviously you're people, and we're going to treat you right and everything else, but I'm really going to be looking at, our phone system and what's getting answered and what's not. There's no more walking up to Nathan's desk or Charlie's desk and asking questions. It's, you're going to be at home and you're going to be sitting there answering calls unless you're in a meeting with the team. And so we kind of ripped the Band-Aid on that. And candidly, most of the employees that we had were not capable of working from home. And we had to replace quite a few people. But at the same time, it gave us access to a deeper bench, right? Because we could now hire anywhere. And we were really starting to focus on those trades businesses. So HVAC, electrical, plumbing, garage door. And we found some talented people across the country that were kind of looking for the same type of position. They were getting called back in the office, but they want to be at home and that sort of thing. So we continued to grow that way. And we got up to we had 15 CSRs. We had a general manager. We had a director of operations. And about 18 months ago, we developed a tool an AI tool to help our agents find information faster. So we have a knowledge base with our customers' information. They use that AI tool that integrated with our Slack, and they were able to find information, quickly while they're on the phone and everything else. And the developer that we talked to, or that we were using, I asked him about AI voice. It was something that always I had thought about. I was like, there might be some opportunities here if this technology ever gets good enough, where you can have that AI kind of be the front line, and then calls can get escalated up and that sort of thing. But you can still have AI do some of this work as long as it's integrating with the right systems and is good on the phone, able to answer the questions in the right way, everything like that. And our developer said, you know what, the technology is not there yet. There's a few companies that are trying to do it, but it's, but he hadn't seen anything that was great. He said, keep your ears open and see what's out there. We found a few companies that I actually brought our developer with us for these discovery calls. And again, we did these discovery calls, and it was a lot of demos that just, honestly, I felt bad for the people doing the demos because they didn't work right in the middle of the demo. And so I kind of shelved it for a few months until I heard a recording for a pest control business, and it was pretty good. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call this company and see who they are, do my own discovery. And it was a one-man shop out of San Francisco. This guy is, UPenn dropout, right? Been coding since he's 10 years old and just off the wall smart. And, but he, did the development, he was doing the marketing, he was doing the sales. So he himself didn't have a scalable business, even though he had a scalable product, right?
Yeah.
And so Charlie and I had a very serious conversation and said, you know what, this could be the future of where our business is going. We can now, serve customers at a high level at a lower price because it's technology. And let's really take a look at this. So we had a lot of conversations with Jerry, who's now our CTO, and we ended up acquiring his business. And so he's our partner. Since that acquisition, we moved all of our customers over to AI voice. We definitely had some customers that were not thrilled and wanted to leave because they wanted the human component to it, even though they knew they were not going to be paying as much. We set up trial accounts for them, test it out, do all this. And it was funny because the ones that really they were adamant about it, right? They didn't even call, their demo accounts, right? So, they left, and we ended up making up that revenue in about 3 weeks. So we were just off to the races at that point. And we've just, every summer as a human-based business, we were going through the same things that most, not just trades businesses, but anybody that has a customer service department goes through, right? You have, people that don't show up or are constantly late, or have a hangnail and they can't type and all this. Any excuse under the sun, we've all heard it, right? And so in the summertime, our business would always get a bunch of new accounts, and we'd have trouble keeping up. Our services would drop. We can't train people fast enough, and then all of a sudden we'd fall and lose a bunch of accounts. And over this past summer, it's just been completely opposite, right? We've gone from as a human business being able to onboard maybe 3 to 4 companies a month comfortably, and now we can do 10, 12, 15 a week. Like, we don't have many constraints on that. And one of the nice things too is we were able to take some of our remaining CSRs and put them into an onboarding role where they now get to work with the AI. They've been in this CSR role for a long time, so they know scripting, they know how things are supposed to look and sound and work and everything like that. And so we got them in, and they work with our tech team and figured out the technology behind the scenes. And now they're able to work with owners, right? And say, okay, here's the scripting for you, and then the next day after our QA team looks at stuff, if there's a bad call, they review it, and then they, get back with the customer. And it's a much, I would say, better role for them too, because they kind of have they have more accountability, but they also have more responsibility and truly driving it, as opposed to just kind of being a voice on the phone answering calls. So
yeah, I dig all that, man. I want to go and dig into like the decision making and the criteria, because I think this is really interesting. So when we're talking about crafting, there's a lot of intentionality that goes with that word. And when we're talking about business, I think we're at the precipice, if not like in the middle, but I think it's super early. As far as AI and other tech, there is a wave, and I think the wave's just started.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to come through home services for sure, but every industry is going to get touched.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for you and your co-founder, Charlie, in that decision-making moment, like, there is risk in adopting new tech.
Yeah.
Like, how did you guys evaluate like that cost benefit piece? And all of a sudden, like, is there just like an endless source of deep pockets to be able to say this risk is worth it at whatever cost? Or like, how did you guys kind of wrestle that and decide to jump in?
Definitely not an endless, deep pockets moment for us, right? This was, I liken it to it was almost like a survive or die type moment, right? How many more summers could we go through where we're just doing this up and down, right? Where we're bringing people on, and then we lose accounts, we have to let people go. And that stuff is, taxing, financially on a company. It's taxing emotionally on the employees and the risks there, and not to like have the violin here, but as owners, it's not fun, right? You're not looking to bring people on with the intention of having to let them go, right? And it's
totally.
And so it was a little bit of survive or die mode, right? I think we knew with being able to provide this type of service, and particularly with the application of the AI voice now, where it is a really good application in its current form for overflow after hours and weekends, the bar is low, to be honest, right? When it comes to call centers, right? When it comes to human-based call centers, the bar is really low. People hire these call centers, and there's a long wait time before they even have a call answered. When there's a call answered, they get put on hold because someone's scrambling around trying to figure out what they're supposed to do with this account, and they're reading, SOPs or whatever that might be. And then, after, so they're waiting, they get an answer, someone answering a phone, and then they're waiting again to get any sort of anything else. And then on top of that, there might be 15 rings before it gets to them, right? So we knew the bar was low. And that's where we said, okay, we can go in there at a reasonable price point and kind of go after that market first, right? And do it efficiently and effectively with technology. And, we were doing calls for companies that, even from a human side, even if from a human that was working directly for the business would take, 5 to 6 minutes to figure out how to schedule something because someone's changing their mind 5 times on the phone on when they want to get on. And we had a bunch of calls where the AI is doing it and listening and bouncing around, and all of a sudden those calls are, 2.5 minutes. And it's just like, and the customer service was good and it's effective, and they're on the schedule, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So survive or die. In some ways, I would imagine, so I'm testing this with you, like you founded Free to Grow, so you had a few years in building and in foundation. In that amount of time, like one might create that identity. Some people in the business world might call that identity a brand. And then in that survive or die moment, like there is a component where there's an intentional, like I'm going to put this identity to death. This was once what that was, so that this new form can survive. Was there, using business speak, like was there a rebrand in that? Is there, close of a chapter, opening up a new one? Like, did you have to put something in some part of you out to pasture?
That's a good question. I would say no. I would say we have to almost internally, we recognize ourselves, and it's more Charlie and I because of being founders, being in the business for so long, and obviously our CSRs have been with us for a while. They're now onboarding, and it's a good transition for them, but they're still getting acclimated to it and that sort of thing. But for us, I still like the mentality that Charlie and I have about it, because it is, when we were a human-based business, it's, we looked at it as every call counts, everything, every little interaction is super, super important. And we're still treating it the exact same way because it is. And we still work with that type of urgency and everything right now. We know the AI is capable of doing it and has to do tweaks and that sort of thing. And now we've shifted that to say, okay, we have 2 excellent, tech guys that are head of our tech guys, that can build stuff and make things, and fine tune and that sort of thing. And then now let's focus on the customer experience side, right? And let's just be nails at that, right? Because we were good at the customer experience before, and then, we were good at the sales aspect before. But the fulfillment was tough because we were always trying to find the bodies to answer the phones and everything. And now we don't have to do that. So now it's just focus on what we're really, really excellent at.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And I think for listeners, as this wave continues, because it's not stopping by any means, like what I'm hearing out of your journey, Nathan, is that, and I would liken it to mine as well, the values are staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's no change in the core values. There's no real change in the mission. It's a change in adoption of the tools that are used to fulfill that mission.
Correct. Yeah.
And for us, I've just seen it, any kind of tech, whether it's an automated SMS or email drip campaign or, social media, whatever it is, it helps us human better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I'm quick to adopt, but I have seen, that resistance. And I think people resist change for a lot of different reasons. But, I just think for any business owner that's listening out there, tech is always evolving, and we're just in a special season of it right now.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going?
I think one, everybody talks about, this is going to replace people and that sort of thing. It replaces an aspect of the job, right? And in my eyes, a company that has a group of CSRs, you don't need to eliminate CSRs, right? And you can keep them because they're still going to have calls that get escalated up to them. They're going to have emergency calls, but you can give them more tasks that they don't get to on a daily basis, right? And the stuff that always gets pushed to the back burner, and you can be a more effective and efficient company because of it. And maybe that means when, your group of CSRs, one drops off or calls in sick or whatever else, or is chronically gone, now you don't have to replace that person, right? You can just keep doing your business, and you don't have to go through the cost of hiring another person and the cost of training and everything like that. So, yeah. But from the technology side, you're right. We're at the beginning of this wave here. There's a lot of stuff that will be coming out, and I'm sure our competition will be doing the same stuff, but we have some very, very cool stuff that's getting added on to what our capabilities are, right?
Yeah. It's awesome, man. Yeah. So, I mean, I think forward, I'm like, okay, in 12 to 18 months, these large call center houses, they are disappearing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of like Bank of America has, I don't know how many gobs of CSRs, if you will, right? And they're just call center service folks. And I can only imagine.
I forget there's one big financial institution, and I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was probably 3 or 4 months ago where they pushed everything AI, right? And it's all AI voice, and I'm sure they have a strong group of people in the background that are monitoring and taking the escalation calls and doing that sort of thing. But they moved everything that direction.
Yeah. What's on the horizon? What do you see in AI voice coming down the pipe?
I think with, the questions that we get all the time are, what are my customers going to think, right? And how are they going to respond to it and that sort of thing. There's definitely still a lot out there that hear AI immediately or they hear a robot or something like that, and they're put off by it, or they hang up or whatever else. And we're kind of putting the pillars in place to help with that. But with the new releases in technology, I think we're really, really close to it being indistinguishable from a person answering a phone. With the new release of ChatGPT, which is imminent here, I think in the next month. And when we're able to leverage that, it's gonna be really, really something.
That's amazing. I feel like there was just a release of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
How quick are these releases happening?
Yeah.
6 months, 4 months?
Yeah. So there was a release that is it's available to the public, but for like our purposes, it's not necessarily available yet, and that's what we're waiting on right now. And that's where, again, it's coming soon. So
yeah. It's crazy.
Yep.
So indistinguishable.
Yeah. Well, and I think from the public perspective too, I think there's obviously generational differences, right? Some older people, and like we hear, kind of an older generation that calls in, and they may have no idea that it's AI that's taking the call, and others do, and they're put off by it, right? I think there's a whole generation of people like probably your and my generation and below, that there's some that still get frustrated with it and they don't want to deal with it, and others are just used to it, right? You call your credit card company, you call AT&T, you call anybody like that, you're used to being in an IVR system where you're, dialing or having to hit one or say things over and over. And it's not that, right? It's actually listening and conversing with you. Actually, the other day, one of our QA guys sent us a call that someone called in, they didn't know it was AI. And I think, the Nina voice picked up, and Nina picked up, and the guy said something like, or she said, "Oh, how can I make your day better?" And he said, "Well, you can send me some money." And the AI responded with, "Well, I wish I could afford to do that." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." So now it's being humorous, right? And it's like, and
getting snarky.
Yeah, my son and I were driving home last night, and he goes, "Can it tell jokes?" I was like, "I don't know, let's call and see." And we called into our test line, and I said, "Hey, can you tell me something funny?" And it told me a plumber joke. I was like, "This is weird." So
yeah, I'm really curious. So, for my company, and I would imagine this would be the same for other brands, like, how far off, or how does this thing get into brand alignment as far as conversational, right? And if there are jokes, maybe I would want to have some type of influence on what jokes come about, so that it's in line with the cooler brand sort,
I think all that stuff's on the table, right? It's
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, let's be sarcastic.
Yeah. We were, I was talking to a company recently that we're kind of in a sales cycle with, and they were asking about voices, and they have like, their logo has a mascot and everything else. And I guess their mascot has a voice, right? They do radio spots and stuff like that. He's like, "Can we have our mascot pick up the phone?" I was like, "Yeah, we could." So now they're interacting with the mascot that they see on the truck. It's wild. So,
yeah. All right. So, okay. Kind of get back towards like practical stuff.
Okay.
From your experience in building this company and your background, from where you're at, how do you keep constant pressure in moving forward and adopting new innovations and scale with the impact of day-to-day boots on the ground?
So the innovation scale is what we're doing, right? That's where, that's why the reason we brought a chief of science on is so he can work on that day-to-day voice, that QA side, right? And that's why we invested in hiring people to listen to calls, and we're actually, adding to that, to that team. That's where we think, we feel our differentiator out there is exactly that. How proactive can we get with the day-to-day business that's taking place, right? Our business is taking calls, booking estimates, answering questions, and having successful calls. And we need to really focus on that. And that's why we've had kind of a separation, even though they work hand in hand with Jerry and Ben, but a separation of duties where Ben is the day-to-day infrastructure guy and working on a constant improvement. And it's not a set it and forget it type solution. And then putting Jerry over the tasks of, okay, what can we be adding, right? What can we be adding that's going to be beneficial to the customer, right? Is it outbound calling? Is it, third party lead gen reception, right? Whatever that might be. And that's where we have this really unique team of one, between the onboarding specialists and I feel like we're getting to a point where we probably need to rename them and just call them customer success folks, because that's what they are. Because they're around for the lifetime of the customer, right? It's they're not just there for onboarding, and having a great team there that has experience with the trades, right? So they're speaking the same language as these owners, and understanding that this is a new technology for these owners to adopt as well, right? And being able to speak on that level. But then when you get into our leadership team between Charlie, Jerry, Ben, and myself, we have a very unique relationship where everybody knows their role, stays in their lanes, they can contribute in other people's areas, but we all play it really, really well, right?
Yeah. I love that. Have you ever hired a big position without being able to afford it that day?
Yeah.
force the growth kind of deal.
Ben was absolutely that for us, right?
That's awesome.
He's chief of science. He's well compensated, and and bringing someone on like that is a risk. But we had so Jerry's in San Francisco, Ben's based in New York, and he comes from a wealth of kind of machine learning background, and working with a bunch of startups, and Columbia educated guy, and so we get them together. They come into St. Louis every 2 months, about every 8 weeks or so. And we all sit down, and actually Ben was just out in San Francisco working with Jerry because they get a lot of stuff done when they're working side by side with each other. But our first meeting with him, he came into St. Louis, and we walked out of there, and I was like, I was like, we gotta move forward here, right? It was a trial period, but I was like, we gotta figure out how we get this done.
Yeah. I love that. I think that there's a theme, for any listeners to take away. I mean, there is a piece of risk anytime there is shift and change. And if we're not doing it intentionally, we might be forced to.
Yeah.
Wonderful, man. How do folks reach out, connect to you, learn more about Free to Grow?
Yeah, they can go to our website, which is Free to Grow. So free-2-grow.com. My email is nate@free-2-grow.com. And we're here. We're setting up demos every day. So yeah.
And you've got some different voice components on your website that people can listen to.
We do. Yeah.
Get a real life experience too. And, I will attest, like, it is effective.
Yeah. It's we have that. We have our demo line on there. It's I would say, the demo line's great, and it leads to a lot of meetings, but a big thing for us again is it's that onboarding aspect, right? It's, there's a lot, it's a noisy space for us right now, right? It was Free to Grow 1.0, which was what we call it internally. That was a noisy space too, but this is, there's constantly new companies popping up, and hey, you can get, here's a voice and you have unlimited minutes for $60 a month. And it's like, yeah, that's great. But that, it's a glorified answering machine at that point. So, there's just a lot. It's a noisy area.
Yeah. In that noise. All right. One final question, and then we'll put the bow ties on this thing. Because the reason I'm asking this is I was just asked it, and it's a very, I think, interesting question. But you talk about noise, and that's like, I'm assuming you're referring to competition. At some point, like AI voice alone, standalone, is very likely going to be a commodity in 18, 24 months kind of deal.
Yeah.
And, it'll be like the base layer of like having a really conversational voice at some point. And so how do you, as your company, distinguish your uniqueness?
We distinguish it from the side that we've been in the trades businesses for a while, right? And then our value add is still that two-sided. It's the customer experience, right? And knowing that we have a team that's here to support you, and then also the ongoing technology side, right? As far as what else is coming out, staying ahead of that curve. Being able to test things out and show people what it's capable of, and kind of because we're living in a world with AI. It's not if, it's when, right? Of what's capable, and as long as we're staying on top of the when, right? As far as when it's coming out, how we're going to do it, how it's going to be effective for people's businesses. But I said this, after being on so many demo calls and talking to people that are, meeting with competition and winning deals from competition. It's having the customer care, because you're right. It's getting closer and closer to being commodity, but at the same time, for it to be effective for someone's business, I don't see it it's not going to be a necessarily set it and forget it, because there's always changes in people's business, right?
Yeah.
There's always a technician that changed. There's a script that needs to there's something that needs to change, right? And since it is not a set it and forget it, we're here to make it that way for people, right? Because we're going to be the ones that are taking care of that side.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig that, man. Well, I surely appreciate this conversation, Nathan. It's fun watching your trajectory too, just as another business owner, seeing how you guys have pivoted, how you've grown. You and I connected when you were all human-based CSRs, maybe a couple of years ago.
I laugh about this. Like, when we made this pivot to AI, and I always, because I feel like we stayed in touch here and there and that sort of thing. At one point, I think we sent you a proposal for human-based CSRs, and I distinctly remember I think I was working from home that day. I was standing in my living room, and you were sitting there going, at what point is AI voice going to be doing this, or AI going to be handling these calls? And I said, I go, Matt, I don't know, but I don't think you're wrong either. And then when you fast forward probably a year later, I think once we had something that was a feasible, proof of concept, I think I sent you a message. I was like, Matt, it's here. Let's talk. So,
yeah. Oh, it's awesome, man. All right. We're going to have your website and your links in our show notes. I encourage folks to reach out to Nathan, learn about AI voice. It's definitely a wave that's coming, and it's not just the voice. There's so many automation pieces that are along with that. So check that out. Nathan, thank you, man. I know we're going to be in touch here ongoing, and I just appreciate you showing up at the Craft Your Life podcast.
Matt, I appreciate it, man. Thanks.